Welcome back to Cycling Unboxed, and today we are clearly going to be looking at tyres. More specifically, these are generally considered performance tyres for your bike. So some tyres that you're going to be putting on your bike if you want to ride a little bit faster. They're going to save you some rolling resistance, and thankfully I've had quite a bit of experience with all four of these tyres individually. So, going from left to right, we've got the Continental GP5000 STRs. These aren't actually the STRs, they're the original normal ones, but I've worn through some pairs of STRs as well. Then we've got the Schwalbe Pro 1 TT. After that, we have the Vittoria Corsa Pro, so one of the fastest that they do. And then finally, the specialized turbo cautions. All of these come in 28C, so they're all the same width, which is generally what I ride at. Apart from these ones only come in a 24 or a 26 wide, so I have the widest ones available. So through this rundown, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into 12 different categories and tell you about my experiences of these tyres individually. And well, they're going to be quite brief categories because there is 12 of them to go through, but I'm also going to order them in this order. So number one's going to be on this side and the fourth is going to be on this side. And I'm going to put them in a big table where you can see all the results of this kind of review, I guess. And I haven't done this before, but it's going to be interesting to see. What you guys do with this information on the tyres is of course up to you. Like, just because some of them may get a lower score on this rating doesn't mean that it's a negative to the tyre itself. That certain attribute of the tyre might suit your bike or your wheel or your riding style. So take the information as it is. So category number one is going to be weight. How heavy are these tyres? Thankfully, because they are all a similar width, it's very easy just to weigh them. Coming in first, we have the Schwalbe Pro 1 TT 28C. That comes in at 240 grams per tyre. Then we have the specialized turbo caution, 240 grams. Next up, the Vittoria Corsa Pro, 280 grams. And then the Continental 5000 STR, 280 grams. So these two are the same and these two are the same. But the reason I've put the Schwalbe ahead of the turbo cottons, even though they're the same weight, is because this is a 28 width and this is only a 26 wide tyre. One thing I will say about buying these lighter tyres is just by buying these tyres over these tyres, you will save 80 grams on your bike just by buying a different set of tyres. So it's actually a fairly easy way to save weight. Next up, we have longevity. How long do the tyres last? Personally, for me, the Continentals generally last the longest period of time. I get about 5,000 kilometers out of them before they have hit their wear mark. Then the Vittorias come in next, the Schwalbe next, and finally, the losers are the specialized turbo cottons. These things, well, they're very light, but they wear quickly, you know, so just be mindful of that when you do buy these. And that is with my own personal experience. Next up is tubeless. Are these tyres tubeless compatible? Obviously you don't have to run them tubeless, but it just makes them a more versatile tyre for more tyre setup options. All of these are together, they'll score 4 points, and I guess this one will score none because the turbo cotton isn't tubeless. Alright, something very important to me, puncture resistance. You're not going fast if you're stuck along the side of the road, and this is one of those areas where different people are going to have different experiences with different tyres. So here are my experiences. First of all, the Continental STRs. Generally, out of like the 5,000k that I get, I'll only puncture like once out of both tyres. Usually it's very impressive. I know some people have told me that actually they've got quite a lot of punctures to the STRs, but personally it's been completely the other way around. I hardly ever puncture on the Continentals. Then comes the Vittorias. I think these ones come next because they have a little bit more thickness to them, and generally you start to see a bit more punctures as the tread starts to wear down a little bit. Then come the Schwalbe Pro 1 TTs. I've used these ones a little bit less, but usually I'm fine with them. It generally takes something pretty sharp to go through them. And then finally, the specialized turbo cautions. These ones perform really badly for me personally. So I weigh 85 kilos, and honestly, on these tires, I puncture like every third or fourth ride. It is so frequent that I get punctured on these. I do have friends who are much lighter than I am, around like the 55 to 65 kilo mark, and they hardly ever puncture on these tires. So I think the added weight of my body seems to make these less puncture resistant, but if you're a lighter rider, you might get along with these quite well. Next up, somewhat relevant when you're on the side of the road, how easy are these tyres to change or put on and off your tyre? So I've used all of these tyres on my Specialized Roval wheels, so they're going to be my general go-to, and usually those Roval wheels are a little bit harder to put tyres on. But here's been my general overall experience, and some of you may have had a different experience to me as well. But the easiest, the Schwalbe Pro 1 TTs, they tend to go on pretty much any wheel, pretty damn easy. Next up, the Vittoria and the Continental are actually very similar to put on. They're tight, but more than manageable by hand. And then finally, these ones come in third again, right at the bottom of the Specialized. But yeah, I don't know what it is. Sometimes I work them as hard as I can, and they're just a real struggle to get on without tyre levers sometimes. So can be the hardest one to get on. I feel like there's just no give around the edge here, whereas these tyres have a little bit more give and a little bit more stretch to get the tyre onto the rim. Next up is comfort, and this category is genuinely really close, even when riding these tyres back to back. But come up first are the Vittorias. I find that they tend to be a little bit more supple, and especially for their width. Then the next are even, to be honest. So there's kind of no winners, no losers on this one. They all perform very well and will give you a supple ride. Next on our category list is grip when in the dry. So generally speaking, I only really push the limits of the tyre when I'm in the dry, and do I really get to the limits anyway? I don't know if I'm that good. The main reason I've got the Continental up here first is because while I have the most experience with it, so I'm probably just used to how that tyre feels the most, but I'm going to give them all the same mark because honestly, in the dry, they feel the same to me. Now, next up is the wet grip. And once again, this one is a little bit biased to the tyres that I've been through the most. I've been through 4 sets of these, only 1 set of these, 1 set of these, and 1 set of these. But generally, I find I'm semi-confident with the GP5s here. The Continentals feel somewhat as close to the GP5s as possible. Then come the Vittorias. If it's slightly oily, they do tend to slip a little bit, especially that rear wheel. And that's probably the same with the Turbo Cottons here. So I think these are the same, give 4 points to them. These are the same, give 3 points to them. With the wet grip here, guys, Bicycle Rolling Resistance do like some wet and dry grip testing. So you're welcome to look at the individual tyres themselves and see what they say. I've just said this from the sensations that I've got when riding the bike and the confidence that I have in these tyres. Next up is measured width. And this is one of those ones where, once again, is bicycle and wheel and tyre dependent that you buy. So generally speaking, on my Rovals, this is what they measure at. Amazingly, the Vittorias, they stay at 28C. They don't get any wider when I put them on my wheels. So that's something to consider. I actually bought the 28s because I was expecting them to blow out to 30mm, but no, they stayed at 28. Next up, in second place, I guess, which once again, this isn't a negative or anything, the Schwalbe and Specialized come together. They do tend to like stretch and shape to the wheel a little bit more, so that if you have a wider internal rim width, these will measure wider as the tire. And then finally, the Continentals, like, man, these really do like stretch out on the wheel on the tire. They on my Rovals, these nearly measure at like 30.5mm, so that's like a 2.5mm difference in width just by putting on these 28s. Which is surprising. But once again, if that's something that you're looking for, you're looking to buy a narrower tyre that measures wider so you still get that comfort, then maybe the Continental might be more for you. Next up is looks and aesthetics of the tyre. Once again, this one that is super personal. This is just my opinion on it, and this is just what I think goes with the colour of my paint job. And as you can see, I pretty much always buy the tan option. Apart from the Continentals, I usually buy the black version because I don't like the brown as much. But my favourite are the more creamier looking tyres of the Vittorias. Then this kind of like yellowy cream of the Specialized. These are actually really nice, give it a more traditional look to the bike. Then come the Continentals. They're like extra creamy and extra white. They're obviously not anymore. These ones are fully warm. But like I said, I normally buy the black ones in these anyway. And last come the Schwalbe 1 TTs. These are just kind of a little bit orangey. And yeah, I don't think look as good on most bikes. These 3 tyres here do come in a black option, and these 2 you have that kind of like transparent brown looking tyre as well. Not a personal fan of the brown, but once again, others may love the brown, and this is just a subjective category. Another really important category is the speed of the tyres, and this time I'm not going to be subjective. I'm going to use the test data from both Bicycle Rolling Resistance and Aero Coach, which I'll link down below for you so you can go check them out for yourselves. They generally agree pretty closely on which tyres are which, just the wattage numbers are different. That's because Bicycle Rolling Resistance measure at a lower speed and Aero Coach measure more at the 40km/h mark. So I'm going to go off the Aero Coach speeds because that's more close to the speeds that these tyres are going to be used at. So amazingly, on that data, the Schwalbe Pro 1 TT are actually some of the fastest tyres on there. They come in at 25 watts for the pair at 40km/h of, I guess, negative rolling resistance. Then the specialized turbo cottons are going to cost you 25.5 watts in rolling resistance. Next up come the Vittorias at 27.2, and finally the Continental SCRs, which come in at 27.3. Realistically, I'm going to give 4 points to these because they're so close, and I'm going to give 3 points to those because they're so close. All of these are great options in terms of speed. And if you are looking at the Schwalbes, but you're just looking at the normal Pro 1, not the TT versions, then I believe the rolling resistance of the Pro 1 is very similar to these. So it's actually a surprisingly fast tyre, even in the slower version of this one. Then for my 12th and my final category, I have width availability, because having the choice to fit your right wheel width is very important. As we know, the width of the tyre and the width of the wheel is very important. You want the wheel to be 5% wider or 105% the width of the tyre that it's measured at. And that's a relatively important part to aerodynamics. So with the most widths coming in at pretty much all of them, going from like 23 up to 32, or some of them even 34, you have the Continental and the Vittorias. They both get 4 points. And coming in at less ranges here, the Schwalbe Pro 1, and these, they generally only come in like a 28 to 26. These ones only come in a 28, 25, and these ones come in a 26, 24 option. And that's just too narrow for the modern options. Realistically, you need a 28. Alrighty, just to go into the final scores, I've added all of the scores up, and coming in at number 1 with the top score, we have the Vittoria Corsa Pros, and that ended up with 37 points. Beating the Continental, which came second. I was actually expecting these to win because of their puncture resistance, rolling resistance and stuff, but they came in with 35 points. Then, closely behind, closer than I thought it was going to be, the Schwalbe Pro 1 TTs. Like I said, I thought they were going to be third, but I didn't think they'll be that close to the other two. And then finally, unfortunately coming in dead last, is the specialized turbo cottons. Doesn't mean they're a bad tyre, they might suit your setup, but coming in last on my category. Anyway guys, what do you think? Are these some of the experiences that you've had with these tyres? Have you had different experiences as I have? Because it seems that everyone does have a different experience with tyres. And once again, don't take those scores as a be-all, end-all kind of thing, as these are the best tyres, you have to buy them. Buy what suits you, your bike, your style, your relevance, and use those categories that I've just gone into. And hopefully that helps you make some purchasing decisions in the future. I've been Jason, this has been Cycling Unboxed. See you in another video.